and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Good evening. I think the recording started just a couple seconds after we started the Pledge of Allegiance, but we did start it appropriately. We have all 5 counselors present and the manager, assistant town manager, and town clerk. Does anyone have any edits to the minutes from the 13th? Jeff?
I believe for the approval of minutes, number 1, it says town council 12/24/2013. I think that should be 1/23/24.
I'm just, sorry, pulling them. What, sorry, what did you, where did you?
For approval of minutes, number 1, town council 12/24/23 should be written January 23rd, 24.
Oh, yeah. That was our last meeting, right?
Yeah.
You got that edit? Any other one?
I just have a comment about the language. It's showing like we're transitioning to full names instead of either our pronouns
Mhm.
or our titles. So I don't know if we should streamline it so it's moving forward.
It should be Council Sayre, Council Costello, Council Cook, Manager Pellerin. So it should be addressing by the legal title so that we understand
Okay,
later when we go back.
okay, that's a good point. I didn't.
In
Didn't
order
think
to
about that.
going forward, I will make sure that it's written like that.
Perfect. Thanks, Dan.
Valerie, the only other thing, and I don't know how this would be approached, under new business. Number 3, on a motion by Mallory Cook, seconded by John James, it was voted 4-1. Typically, in the past, when a vote is not unanimous, it will note which counselor opposed the vote, and I don't know if that's a legality or if it was just something that had been done in the past by past clerks, or if it has to be in there.
No, it's not, doesn't have to be in it, it's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Anything else?
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
I do think if it's a, in this particular case, it was a small amount of money. But I do think this thing,
Your microphone.
You don't need it.
I do think that if it was an important vote and it was abstained or 4-1 or something, that should be reflected. On this one, I don't think it matters, but I think going forward, if it's a major issue, it should reflect exactly, what you did as council. So we'll just monitor that.
So why don't we go ahead, because we're making some minor modifications anyways for this set of minutes, Diane, if we can just update that to include who the one person was, so just so it's reflected, and then going forward, we'll do the same thing.
For this, Madam Chair, you want me to update the date and add in the opposition vote for the corrections on this?
Yes, and then I think, if you can do a quick, find and replace. Just since you're touching it anyways. Okay, and then we'll move forward, we'll use the titles.
Yeah.
Thank you. What did they say before? They said Mrs. and Mr., right?
Well, when I was learning from the prior clerk, I was told that it was really the type of choice.
Yeah.
So, there was never really any etiquette for it, but you're more than welcome to set the etiquette, maybe so put.
I like it.
General etiquette, the position.
Yep.
hold.
Let's do it. Okay. All right. So we do have several modifications that we've just discussed. So I'll take a motion to, or I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from February 13th, 2024 as amended, as we discussed.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Jessica? Aye. John?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you.
And up next, we've got the treasurer's warrants.
Madam Chair, I move we accept the treasurer's warrant in the amount of $237,827.38 dated 2/22/2024.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion, questions? Ready? All those in favor, sign the treasurer's warrant, say aye. Jessica?
Aye.
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Okay. Our next order of business is public comment. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to anything that's not on the agenda later on? Tamara, go ahead.
If this is not, Tammy Steinhauer, 19 Hill Drive.
No. Put the mic off. I can hear you, but they probably can't.
Yeah.
Tamara Steinhauer, 19 Hill Drive. And if this is not the appropriate place, I know you'll let me know. I attended a second zoning board of appeal meeting last night and we pay for 2 attorneys. This is the second time. So is it standard procedure that the code enforcement officer gets her own attorney and the town gets their own attorney?
I'll let Tim answer.
The choice is the manager's choice based on the recommendation of the events that's being questioned and being, sent by the zoning, being questioned to the zoning board of appeal. It's solely my choice based on all the information, so I pick when and what we need for legal representation to protect the town.
Okay,
So I look at the material, I look at the matter, I see what's there. It's customary to have, it's customary, the town's attorney always represents the code officer. Always, that's that's part of what our contract is for legal. It's whether or not the zoning board of appeals gets an attorney and whether or not the zoning board of appeals needs an attorney. So my judgment for that was that we had a brand new member plus another newer member, Bob Ager.
Okay.
And this interfered at cross lines with non-conforming lots with, marijuana ordinance, as well as a building permit. So there were 3 particular legal issues. 2 new members on the board. So it wasn't that she gets her own attorney, the code enforcement always gets their own attorney. It's whether the zoning board gets the attorney. So I got the attorney for the zoning board because that left it there was too many issues of being unresolved for them to try to figure that all out.
okay.
Does that help you?
Yeah, thank you. And my second question also relates to, I guess, when a business applies for a permit and mentions what hours they're going to be open, is that enforced?
It's supposed to be enforced within the regulation of the zoning ordinance, yes.
Okay,
And yes, I know about that.
okay,
I'm all set. I'm working on it.
thank you.
Anyone else in the room? Paul, go ahead.
Paul Steinhauer, 19 Hill Drive. I too was at the zoning board of appeals meeting last night, and while there were a whole boatload of things that were concerning, the one thing that I wanted to ask for direction on was a procedural issue with the zoning board of appeals. Jokingly, I'm sure the chair said, because they needed to schedule another meeting, they said, well, we can just meet in the parking lot. We have in the past. So I'm hoping he was just joking. But then they said they were going to meet on Friday with their assigned attorney to talk about the receipt of finding of fact, the legal document. My question is, my understanding is that the planning board, from my experience, and the town council, from what I've learned, when they have meetings, they have to be done so many days in advance, so many days posted, so that it's public record. Do those same processes and limitations and guidelines apply to the zoning board of appeals? Because if so, then they are subject to ex parte communication on Friday because they have not met the minimum requirements for notice.
Got it. I am going to be perfectly honest, the zoning board of appeals, because it's such an ad hoc board, it only meets when needed. My inclination is, that's what I know about the requirements for the zoning board of appeals to meet. Tim, I don't know if you have any thoughts, I mean,
Yeah, so that, one might be so low.
you don't need it. It's loud.
So last night, they have so many days to get the finding of facts and review them and approve them. But if they made their motion last night, then under the freedom of access information, they have 3 days for public notice. That would be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for public notice for meeting on Friday, correct?
Yes, if that's their policy that it's.
Well,
supposed to be
it's not
3 days.
policy, it's state law.
Right.
It's
okay.
MRSA 1 on the freedom of access to information. And what it specifically says is that under the freedom of access to information where that's attained, that for all public meetings, a minimum of a 3-day public notice is what's required. So effectively, they gave the notice meeting, when they called the meeting last night, that would be considered a public notice.
Okay, so it's 3 days for them, but I think it's a little longer for some of the other boards that are not ad hoc. or is
It depends on, so don't get it confused with a special town meeting or a public hearing. Public hearing is 7 days.
Different.
Those are different.
Got it.
And special town meeting's 10 days. So just a regular board meeting, if the planning board decides to call a meeting 3 days in advance, public notice. We gotta post it 3 days in advance. Zoning Board of Appeals, 3 days in advance. Their particular, that's the state law.
Mhm.
So, workshops, 3 days in advance. Emergency meetings, we get a buy, we don't have to. So technically, if, you know, Tyann puts it up or announced it last night, that was the public notice that would hold in court to say that everybody, you could go back and listen, it was publicly noted. It's just gonna be, and it's not, it is a meeting in public meeting, but it's just to approve their minutes.
Right,
I hope that they're not gonna meet in the parking lot. We,
me too.
Jenny said she's gonna unlock the door, they're gonna meet in the room downstairs.
Okay,
So it was clearly identified the time, the date, and what the agenda was to review the minutes of the meeting, was to review their, findings of fact, sorry, fault. And then, to meet in the first floor meeting room at 6 PM Friday.
got it.
So
So
it was
3,
done on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, gives them the 3 days, fourth day would be Friday.
got
And
it.
you can look it up under freedom of access information, is the requirement of that law.
Okay, yeah, I did a lot of research, made a lot of phone calls, and did not see that under freedom of access, so.
Right,
So 3 days, great.
that's where it comes in. Again, that could be superseded by other ordinances and so forth, but usually the finding of facts is just, they meet, they greet them, yep.
Got it. Okay,
I mean, I don't have to tell you, you've got plenty of board experience, so you know all that stuff.
great. Thank you.
Does that help?
Anyone else? Questions? Public comment? Anyone on Zoom? If you're on Zoom, just raise your hand. Okay, we'll move on from public comments to unfinished business. Number 1, Great Works Regional Land Trust update. Tim,
I met with myself and the assistant town manager, met with Tim on 221. And we talked about what his plans were. He was gonna meet with, today with the federal officials responsible for the grants. And I was gonna discuss the monies and so forth and what was gonna happen. He informed us that he still wants to request the monies from the town. But he also understands that if he's not requesting the money according to the, warrant question, then he would have to start the process over and ask for something else, do the whole process just like he did last time. I explained all that. He understood that, he was gonna go to the meeting and then touch bases with us after the meeting. So I expect you to hear this week or the first next week, but he very clearly understood that whatever monies he wants, whether he wants that monies or other monies, this money, if he's not gonna use it for that lot purpose, then
we start over.
we start over.
Okay.
So he was fine with that, thanked us. Did I miss anything?
No, you covered it.
Okay. So we'll be hearing from him sometime in the future, kicking off a similar process, like we had done last year. Asking for money for this project, and we'll go through some, and then assuming we get that back from Great Works Regional Land Trust, we'll follow a similar process that we did last year, putting on a ballot for November and asking the public to vote. Just for everybody, just context for this.
Right.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Sorry, we jumped into this with not a ton of context. There's a project with the Great Works Regional Land Trust where they're trying to acquire some land along the Salmon Falls River. They had come to us a while ago. I can't remember when specifically, it had come to us, as the town essentially looking for some funds to help purchase some of this land. If you voted in November, you'll remember that there was a ballot item on there, for basically looking for approval from the community to spend $250,000 on the acquiring of this piece of property, specifically for this Great Work Regional Land Trust project. But then since then, the owner of that property donated the land. And so the money is no longer needed, but the language in our ballot item was incredibly specific, saying the money can only be used specifically for this piece of property. And they don't need it anymore for that specific piece of property. So that's just context there. Any questions, comments for Tim? Okay, cool. Thank you, Tim. We'll move on to number 2, Town Hall Building Project update. And this I will provide some context on. So just to remind everybody, earlier this year, the council granted the town manager approval to put out an RFQ to find an architecture firm to complete a holistic building assessment and renovation design and, oh, sorry.
Now, Jim,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
You're fine, no.
I recommend to the council, to do the new business first, where you have.
Oh, yeah.
Public's waiting. And you're totally.
No, that's totally fine. Thank you, Tim. I didn't think about that. I'll make a motion to move new business ahead of unfinished business for this meeting.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Jessica? Aye. John?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Tim. Okay, just kidding. We'll come back to that. New business number 1, Fogarty's liquor license.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the liquor license renewal for Fogarty's Restaurant. They are a business in good standing, and there have been no issues reported from the chief of police.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion in a second. Discussion, questions? All those in favor say aye. Jessica? Aye. John?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. And then number 2, special amusement permit for Oddfellows.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the special amusement permit for Oddfellows Tavern. Again, they are a business in good standing. We have no complaints from the neighbors. And it has been customary for us to approve these special amusement permits without doing a public hearing. It's how we've done them in the past.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Jessica? Aye. John?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Great. That takes care of new business. Thank you for coming this evening.
Thank you.
Answer your question.
Yeah, of course. no problem.
Keep being in good standing. Thank you.
Okay, we'll now jump back to unfinished business number 2, Town Hall Building Project update. So as I was explaining, I wrote up some notes, so I'm trying to figure out where to stop. So we are put out an RFQ to hire an architectural firm to complete a holistic building assessment and renovation design, and most importantly, a cost analysis of what renovating this building might look like. And based on the information we have today, we're targeting November to have a ballot question prepared to put this out to the public as to whether or not we want to renovate or build new. And so given that timeline of November, we need to aim to try to have this assessment completed by early mid-August so that we have enough time to get language on the ballot. So that's just context for this item. Last week, Jessica, Melissa, and myself, we participated in interviews with 4 different architecture firms for renovation RFQ. It was the 3 of us, Tim, the town manager, Jen, the assistant town manager, and then we also had 2 ex officio consultant participants in these interviews, which were Ken Weston and Mike Lasso. And so each one of us at the interview, each counselor, and I'll just say John and Jeff were not able to join, but we did have the 3 of us there. And we'll have discussion on this item today and then also at our next meeting. But each one of the counselors has completed an evaluation matrix assessing the 4 different bidders. And the 4 bidders were McHenry Architecture, Hall Designs, Placework, and Oak Point Associates strongly partnering with Lasso Architects, I guess is the way to describe that last bid. So tonight I've asked Jessica, Melissa, and myself, we're gonna kind of speak to our experience in the interviews. We want to get Jeff and John up to speed. Please ask questions, jump in, clarify, whatever. We can keep this somewhat informal, but I want to make sure we get all the information out there. And then I think we'd like to try to narrow down to the top two just this evening. So that between now and our next meeting, if there's additional follow-up questions, kind of confirming financials and stuff, we can have that information in hand for our next meeting on March 12th. And then the intention would be to select and vote and move forward at our next meeting. Questions? Anybody? All right, Jess. What do you got?
So my intention with my comments is just to let you know who is in the room, kind of what happened with the comments, and then a quick commentary about the fee structure. So first up was McHenry Architecture. It was presented by Mark Giannini, the principal architect, Richard Desjardins, who's an architect, and also attended by Sam Flingstrom, who's an engineer from SEPCO. McHenry is partnering with Cisco Organizations for Trades, and two of which are South Berwick businesses. The cases presented to the committee were from the greater Seacoast area, including buildings at Smutty Nose, the Center for Wildlife, 3S, and New Hampshire Hall at UNH. They present themselves as taking a leadership role on sustainability and preservation in the area. Mark spoke in depth about the masonry exterior and about having a phased approach as they have conducted other projects with workers in place, but said that the cost really depended on the contractors as well as the timing and what we could actually facilitate. They're very well educated, but I felt as though during the conversation, they needed to speak at a higher level and then drill down into the weeds because I was lost at some points trying to connect why they're highlighting certain pieces. The quote was the highest out of the bunch, and it required additional fees for 3D modeling, postage, permits, cost modeling. Their schedule showed mid to late July for deliverables, so they would be on time for our needs.
Is that,
That's from McHenry. Do you want to?
yeah, I would love to just kind of, or unless,
Keep going.
yeah, you go and then, yeah.
The second was for Paul Design Projects. It was presented by Paul Lewandowski, the principal architect, and Jacob Green, who was our project manager. Paul spoke in depth about designing buildings for resiliency and using sustainable practices, using a good, better, best model to drive conversations surrounding options and price points. Their proposal would include presentations to both the public and the town council. They spoke in depth about their experience with Fork Food Lab in Portland, which highlighted how they think outside the box and think about the impact of material choices. For instance, triple versus double glazed windows, and about the payback for the options that we would have to be presented with, considered the cheapest versus the rate of return. Their estimated completion date was for late July, and they had the lowest out of the quotes that came into us. It is a very small shop, so I'm a little bit concerned that we would be a bigger project than what they'd be able to actually facilitate, given the complex stakeholders in this project. Third up was for Placeworks. It was presented by Alyssa Maypenny Murphy, who's the founder and principal, and also Josh Lacasse, who's a project manager. Placeworks has extensive municipal building experience. They spoke in depth about the Portsmouth Senior Center, which also had a limited budget. During that project, they were able to focus on interventions on a proportion of the building to make an area of the building warm and energy efficient, and to kind of flex for future projects. The comment that stuck to me during this was, where do you really want to put your resources to fit your needs? They also spoke about their experience at the Newmarket Town Hall, which flexed space for future growth. They spoke about engagement at a very wide level, mentioning charrettes, groups, public listening sessions. And then regarding public budgeting, they are relying on past budgeting information that was already put out using the price per square foot budgeting. Alyssa spoke about engaging with the Downtown Revitalization Committee and stressed the opportunity for civic presence, it's our government presence within our downtown, and transparency of the town operations and staying inside these buildings. She did mention having additional space within this building and options for lease out to other nonprofits and to support the community in other ways. They could complete reverse engineering to meet our budgeting needs. Their proposed fee structure would add on services such as public engagement and modeling. So I'm concerned that we don't understand what their actual quote is, so that's something we'd have to flush out. And then last but not least is Lassell Architecture at Oak Point. They are partnering for a large project, a couple of large projects in Alfred, which is why they're kind of coming to us with this. Oak Point really drove the conversation. It was attended by Tyler Barter, who's the principal at Oak Point, Christy Gothier, who's a designer at Oak Point, and then Nikki Miller, who is a designer at Lassell. Our proposed project manager, Peter, did not attend. They spoke about kicking off the project with the stakeholder meeting, in-depth programming, recognizing existing data, but that they wanted fresh programming from this, with the information to chat about floor plans to meet the needs of our program. Once this work is done, they want to bring in trades and then start looking at costs, which are tiered based on needs. Oak Point can generate content for our website. They can produce mailers, public engagement and interviews without adding to the cost. They estimated 2 to 3 touch points with the public, which was above the other proposals. And they spoke about a holistic project budget development where options are identified for program integrated across all design principles, disciplines, design and construction schedule. So they spoke specifically about the construction schedule, which was different than the other proposals because everything is in-house. To me, you know, with having everything under one roof, I feel as though we would really be streamlined and we would get the communication that we need. So they came in, with all of those costs in their quote.
So I guess,
Opinion.
yeah, I'm curious kind of how you guys want to do this. Do you want to share like who your top is, top 2? Or do you want us to talk and then you share? What do you guys want to do?
I was told I couldn't write a 4-page essay.
You're right, I did tell you.
So Jessica completed my 4-page essay. So all I have left. Anything else to say?
Yeah,
So
that's
Jessica
great,
wants to
like-
keep going.
I took a lot of notes, so
Yeah,
yeah.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Who is like your?
So just for the public's sake, of some transparency, we have an evaluation matrix with 6 different criteria points on a scale of 0 to 4, with 4 being the best. The 2 lowest ranked out of these were Paul Design Projects and McHenry Architecture.
Okay. Melissa. You wanna go?
Sure.
For the most part, I felt it was a pretty level playing field with certain criteria I use to evaluate all 4 companies bidding on this process, such as prior experience with similar projects, scope of services provided in their proposal, proposed commitment to our project, communication skills, format for cost estimating, and et cetera. So with that field being level, my process of elimination came down to concerns that could be problematic. And I just want to highlight one on each company because I know my pros and cons could go on forever. So my biggest concern with McHenry is their cost. We've already spent a lot of money on another estimate. And I don't see an opportunity to negotiate the proposed fee down to a comfortable cost that I think the town would be okay with spending. Their cost was, I think, $124,000, I think, and some change or and I would never ask a contractor to just simply cut their rates. So I really didn't feel that we could cut from the scope of services that they were offering to lower their bid, so their cost scares me a little bit. Paul Design, my hesitation is with their project manager's experience. He has a lot of psychology experience. And I typically, in project managers, like to see them have some sort of a background in whether it's the architect or engineering, like some sort of the trade of the project, you know, that we are doing. And it just wasn't there. And on the flip side of McHenry, Paul Design was actually the lowest proposed bid at around $30,000. And that also scares me because when you're $30,000 to $40,000 lower than the next bid and there's still two more higher bids, you kind of question, are you gonna get what you pay for, on that aspect? With place work, my concern was, some exclusion of scope of services that the other companies were offering, particularly public engagement not being one of them included in their scope of services. And I think we all know, how important public engagement is in our community. Renderings were also not included, in their fee. With Oak Point, the only concern I honestly had was that the key personnel that we'd be dealing with was absent from the interview. I'd really like to have been able to speak with Peter, because I think a lot of dealing with somebody is, can you communicate properly with them? And if you don't have the opportunity to speak with them, you can't get a feel of whether they would be a good fit for this project with us or not. So there is one concern that 3 of the companies showed and 1 did not, and that was bench depth. And what I mean by that is Placework, Paul Designs, and McHenry are all collaborating or outsourcing pieces of this project with 5 to 7 different contractors. Lassell and Oak Point are working together and all of the, it would be in-house. So where I go with that is, I feel like there would be a quicker return on inquiries and less chance of things getting lost in translation. And it kind of insinuates a more cohesive team to me, because it just, yeah. So after digesting the information gathered through the interview process of the 4 companies, seeking consideration to be selected for the town hall renovation design services, it would be my recommendation to consider for the project Oak Point Associates and Lassell Architects, as well as Placework, with conditions of negotiations and the possibility of meeting with the project manager at Oak Point.
Okay. So all 3 of us are very much on the same page. I'll preface with that. In terms of, McHenry Architecture, I feel the interaction that we had didn't justify the cost. So that was kind of an easy elimination, I guess, for me. And Paul Designs kind of similarly, the low end, kind of scared me a little bit, and also your point about project manager experience too. So that leaves us with Placework and Lassell Architects. Placework and Lassell / Oak Point / Lassell, we'll say. And I agree with both of you for the in-house reason, like the in-house justification, I guess, for Oak Point, in that I think that will help streamline the process and also make for a good communication process. This is a pretty, based on what we're working toward today, this feels like a very tight timeline, I feel like, to turn this around. Granted, this is not my area of expertise, but it does feel a little tight. And so it kind of feels like there's a lot of balls potentially to be in the air. And if one drops, I feel like we could risk the timeline, and having everybody in-house, I think, would be really beneficial. I would, however, among the 3 of us, I want to know what Jeff and John think, but it seemed like Oak Point and Placework seems to be our top 2, at least among the interview panel. I would really like to see if we could chat with Peter or somebody between now and next meeting, because Peter is the project manager, or would be the project manager if we move towards the Oak Point Associates. And I definitely approach this process much more from like a soft, squishy people perspective, because there is so much collaboration that has to happen with this project that, I want to make sure that there's a good fit there. And I did feel like that was very true for both Oak Point and Placework. But I would very much want to speak to Peter, the project manager, and just confirm that same dynamic exists there. And Placework, similarly to what Jessica and Melissa said, we know that public engagement is super important for us and for this project. This is a very emotional topic. Of course, public involvement and engagement is gonna be super important for us with this. And the fact that that's an additional kind of budget line item, for place work is a little bit of a, concern, I guess. So those are my thoughts. Do you have questions? Or, sorry, let me ask Tim and Jen, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I just like to have you ask, Ken, where he was in also.
Yeah, okay. Ken, is there anything you would feel comfortable sharing?
No, I think you covered it pretty well.
I'll set up a meeting for next week, so you can meet.
Yeah, let's just kind of like, most likely, yeah, let's just go through it like in front of and stuff,
Yeah,
but,
they're gonna vote on something.
do you have questions? Yeah.
I don't have any questions. I appreciate you guys, being there and sorry for my absence and appreciate the running. Looking at, having looked at all the stuff, that was my top two where you guys seem to have landed as well. So that's encouraging that you guys were still there after meeting them. So I think.
So sorry, you said you got to that same conclusion, just looking at their material.
Correct, yeah, that's where I was waiting for you guys to really rip the carpet out from underneath me.
Got it. Okay,
So, yeah, no, I'm on board with what you guys are saying
okay.
and what already, so kind of makes the decision harder to whittle it down. But,
Okay.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and just some additional context for the public, each firm did send us quite a large packet, sent that to the town, and then that was distributed to the council ahead of the, issue. So John and Jeff and all of us were able to absorb that information ahead of the interviews, and they also all came and met with staff ahead of that for kind of an informational session too, ahead of the interview, so this has been quite the process. John, questions, concerns?
No, it sounds like, a lot of the criteria, listening to Jessica and, Melissa, and you speaking, a lot of the same criteria that you used to make your judgments for what we did with the interviews we did for the revitalization. We were really looking, this is why I wasn't here. We were really looking for the community input. We were really looking for the one touch. Everybody is in-house, they're not farming everything out to everybody, and that's how we got to where we got with the people we selected there. Again, I looked through the material we got and I have zero issue with either company. I do, however, like that everything in-house, when we deal with them, we deal with this selection, so that's just my mind, but thank you again for all the time you put in and all the notes you took, Jessica. Done.
So it seems like there's consensus that we like Oak Point and Place Work as our top two. So should I make a motion?
I make a motion to allow the manager to enter into financial negotiations. And at the same time, if you want a meeting with,
Peter,
set up a meeting with Peter. We'll do that, and then bring back final financial proposals to the board for those two companies, so you can approve on the two next week, the
okay,
next meeting.
okay, great.
Can we just ask one more thing before?
Yeah, of course.
The only thing I'd like to discuss with the council is, it's a slight concern is, and I might have to refer to Ken on this. We're asking 5 months from these companies to give us a huge design. And when I think about possible negotiations, I feel putting such a time crunch on some of these companies might boost their cost up. And the reason I say that is in the trade industry, when a client comes to me and says, I want it done tomorrow, they're gonna pay for it to be done. So my first question would be, is 5 months an adequate amount of time, Ken, do you think, for a project of this scale to be completed?
Yes, I do. You know, scheduling the public.
Jack, can you come up to the mic?
Yeah, sorry.
We like seeing you, he just can't hear you.
Thanks, Ken.
Ken Weston, 19 Spring Street. Yes, I think 5 months is adequate. It's really gonna be about scheduling and, you know, getting time with you folks. That's gonna drive the schedule. So, you know, and outcomes from those public engagement sessions can slow things down as well. But, you know, this is a study. It's not, they're not doing the complicated math at this phase. All the math is on the cost estimating side. They're not designing beams and, you know, foundations and that kind of thing at this stage. So we're still trying to determine, is there a renovation project here that's feasible? Or are we gonna build new? And I think with that scope, there's a lot of costing involved, there's a lot of public engagement, and you can do that in 5 months.
Thanks, Ken.
Because where I was going with that was, I know we're trying to fast track this project so that it can get on the November ballot, and I guess I just didn't really understand why we're trying to fast track it.
I mean, I think this is just my kind of 2 cents on that. And first of all, I kind of preface with, based on what we know right now, we're working towards that date. Who knows, we might bring in one of these companies and then some bomb could be dropped or something, right? And I feel like based on what we know today and the timeline and stuff, November feels like it can work. Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I don't think, like, if things absolutely like hit the fan, I think we can move that out, but also we have to recognize that this building is in rough shape as it is, and it just continues to get worse, and so I think we just need to get things moving, but if something comes up that prevents the November timeframe, I think we can schedule a special town meeting whenever we do. But and also I think too, given that it's a presidential election year, we should have high voter turnout, so we should have a lot of public input hopefully on this item too. So I think November makes sense. Any other questions?
That's a big key selling point and I'm not one to rush either, but we will have a high turnout this November, and that could help us if we get there. But again, like you said, if something pops up, then we don't get there, but we should have at least have a target.
Well, yeah, it's important that we do this right, and if there comes a point where it feels like if we're choosing between right or November, we need to choose right. And adjust.
I just didn't want to strap a company to a 5-month deadline and then not get all of the information that we
Yeah.
desire.
Or pay double.
Or, exactly,
Understood.
yeah.
Okay, any other discussion? You're about to make a motion, so I'll go ahead and offer up a motion to authorize the town manager to begin financial negotiations with Oak Point Associates and Placework, and also inquire as to whether or not we can arrange a meeting with the project manager, Peter from Oak Point.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? Questions? All those in favor say aye. Jessica? Aye. Done?
Aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. And then I think as it relates to the meeting with Peter, I think let's just try, if we can try to get it in the next couple of weeks, and then whomever can join can. All right, we'll move on to new business, sorry, unfinished business number 3, LD 646 update 10.
Just want to inform the council that the state passed that. For under Tiffany one. I don't see it. They did pass it. So they are gonna fund reimbursement municipalities for the total 100%, so we should get it. I don't know when we're gonna get it, but we should get it. It is an emergency amendment, so it did pass, but we should be getting it, so.
Great, that's good news. Questions? None?
No.
All right, that takes care of all our business. Town manager's report.
The highways used 1,000 tons of salt so far, which is actually down for the winter. Usually about this time, down to 2,200 tons. They're gonna run down as much of the salt as we can, because they want to empty it out to recoat the salt shed. With tar to preserve the concrete, so they're trying to get that done. Hooper Sands Road, which with a washout where it's washed the bank in, gonna need to be dug out to the road base. We're hoping that we'll get a federal declaration. Jay's working on getting the excavating repairs. Right off the top of his head, kind of looking at it, we're probably at around 100,000 or more. We're gonna have to get down into that side of the bed, to dredge that out. That. Police department have had 0 arrests, 5 accidents, 80 traffic stops. They're having a meet and greet with the PD in the training room for the new animal control officer, Carol Harris, on March 13th at 6 p.m. Fire department's had 15 calls year to date. The total now is 57. They responded to mutual aid building fires in Lebanon with a tanker, Rollinsford, ladder and an engine, and Elliott with an engine and tanker. In all instances, they're able to support the neighboring town's request and have crews available in the station to cover the calls in town. I will tell you, I was one of the first ones on the scene in Rollinsford the other day, and that could have been a very serious, much more serious than it was. It's a 3-story tenement building. The fire was in the garage attached to the building. Rollinsford got there first with three guys on 1 truck, and then second behind them, we rolled in with 3 trucks and 10 guys, and then we went to work. I had the opportunity to go homeowner later on, and he just jumped for joy about South Berwick, and he said, it looked like the whole cavalry came, and he said, I was so appreciative, but he said, I thought I was gonna lose my whole building. And they stopped and held it right in the garage, so kudos to our department again, doing a great job. Code enforcement, 6 building permits, 7 plumbing permits, 0 violations noted. Under planning, Sandville Estates and Automotive Services will be in front of the planning board on 3/6. The Sandville Estates did pass. What will be in front of them is we're sending all the finding of facts to legal to approve those, and then that'll come back to the planning board for the final time. Europe.
At the library, on Valentine's Day, they had the Granite State Bell Ringers performed, and they had about 37 people come to the library for that event. They did a storybook ball on February 24th, and that was a fun event with about 90 people who were in attendance, all dressed up in costume. And on the 28th, there will be a resident sharing gardening and planting tips, if anybody wants to attend. AARP is tax aid doing appointments at the community center on Fridays. They process about 20 returns during the day. Right now, they are booked out through April 5th, but they do still have a few appointments on the 5th and 12th of April, if anyone's interested. Nikki has been working for the town for 14 years. Not once has she had a year that Powder House has not opened. And it is not looking good, unfortunately, for this year. So, I don't know, think snow, but it's looking to be 50, 60 degrees next week, so better luck for us next year. And of course, we put all that money into it this year with a new roof and we put improvements in there. So she's a little disappointed that she didn't get to show that off this year. Next year. The senior program had a Valentine's lunch, which was very successful. About 68 seniors were in attendance. And on the 28th, they have an Elvis impersonator. So that's usually a big event. They're expecting about 80 people to show up for lunch that day. In assessing, they're working on the permit inventory throughout the year that Jenny has put out in code. They go and review all of those that they call their permit pass. We'll look at all those different buildings and see what the differences are to be assessed. And Brittany, in assessing, is helping Verna finish a project for CAI and to have better information on the wells in South Berwick line. And they're working through duplicate maps and lots and getting all those tax maps updated the best they can. KRT is the people doing our evaluations, and the staff has been working on Portland Street this week. And they are lightly staffed until a little later this spring. Personal property declarations and the business equipment tax exemption applications have been sent out to all the different businesses in South Berwick. And they are fielding questions from new businesses and existing businesses that have never received this request before. So they're getting all that updated information to get the bills out. And the clerk's office, Tyann and her staff have been very busy getting ready for the election. That will be on March 5th. It'll be open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And this Thursday is your last day to do an absentee ballot. And the new chalkboard that the girls put up has been a big hit. And I understand you had a nice picture to share with them.
Yes, I had a wonderful time and Tyann got me sick using her chalk, but other than that, it was excellent. I like it.
And I'd like to say that we did wash the board, but your little figure is still there. We left it there just to, make a point.
It is fantastic walking in there and I ran into a couple of residents the day I was in registering my truck and everybody loves the changes and how it is in there. It's incredible what you all have done.
It's been very well received. Actually, Tyann got another, other girl. I should have brought it with me to read, so I'll make sure I do that for you next time. At the transfer station, last Saturday, we had, some of our officers there to meet and greet the public and just go over some of the ordinances and some of the rules, in case anybody had any questions. And this Wednesday, we are actually losing one of our transfer station attendants. He is actually gonna retire. So we're still looking for help at the transfer station, if anybody's interested. Economic development, downtown revitalization plan, they have received about 217 surveys completed to date. The deadline is March 15th, so plenty of time for anyone who has not filled those out. And I also understand you do not have to necessarily be a South Berwick resident, but come through the area or work in the town. They want to hear from you. For myself, finance, HR, safety, benefits, I've had 13 business meetings, 24 staff meetings in the last 2 weeks, conducting round 3 of budget meetings with all the department heads. We have our last one tomorrow. I'll be finalizing the budget and getting that ready for our first presentation to the council next Tuesday. I have met with 4 different vendors to get quotes on these blinds here in this room so that we don't get blinded in the months to come when the sun will still be peeking through. And that should be completed by the end of March. We'll have those up. And we actually signed a new contract today with Stellar, who does our IT services. We are bumping up to the gold plan, which in turn will end up saving us money. It'll include all the phone calls to them instead of being charged for every 10, 15-minute increment. We're on the phone or they're remote in to help us. They'll all be included in the gold plan, which should help people not be afraid to call out to IT for help. And just streamline that process. And part of that, we're also getting quotes from Trio, which is our software. The clerk's office uses it, nothing uses it, finance uses it. And if we go to a web-based program instead of, or what I almost feel like is a DOS program, they can host our server. So we're looking into getting prices because our servers are getting old and they need to be replaced. If we go with this web-based version, we would only need 1 server, not 3. Each one is about $10,000 to $12,000. So we're looking into that. I will have more information to come on that. And Governor Mills has asked President Biden for more FEMA disaster relief for the January 10th and January 13th storms, which would cover the expense that Tim was talking about for the Hooper Sands Bridge. So keep you posted on that when we know more. So,
I want to do the town district school meeting. Right, one second.
yes. They're working on their budget as well as both towns are. And they did a recalculation of the current budget. And there's a calculation that's done with the town of Elliott and the town of South Berwick. It goes by 3 different factors. It's how many children are in attendance from each town, what the valuation of each town is, and it goes by the state mill rate. I fully understand exactly how they calculate everything, but it comes to a point now when they did that for this year, that we are just about 50-50. We are 49.98 and Elliott is 50.02. So what that does is with the current budget that we're in now, South Berwick would have to pay an additional $48,000 for this year's school budget. Elliott would get a reduction in that $48,000 because of the way the ratios have changed. Therefore, going into the new school year budget, we're kind of already in the whole 48,000. And they are trying to keep their limit at a 5%, which is about $1 million increase. Split 50-50 is 500,000 each town. plus the 48 for already in them. That's their goal.
So wait, so it's the way the calculation worked before was it was not an even split between Elliott and South Berwick, and now it more or less is?
Yes.
And so that is, shouldn't that help us? Cause wasn't it skewed the other way?
Elliott was paying more than South Berwick. in the
Oh, they
past
were,
years.
okay, that's.
Yes, they were.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, never mind.
But again, we're changing the budget again after it's been approved again.
No, they're not changing it for this fiscal year. We're giving,
They like went back and did it.
if we were to have changed it for last year with the new calculations that they've received for this school year. They just wanted to give us a.
Don't feel blindsided.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah, don't feel blindsided because you're already gonna have to pay more, for sure.
Great.
Because it's fairly 50-50 now, where it was kind of 48-52. I don't know exactly what those numbers are, I have to ask them. So that was the big takeaway from the school.
Under admin for myself, I've had 6 business meetings, 15 staff meetings. Met with the Conservation Commission concerning the town forest, myself and the assistant town manager. Referenced some cleanup and also some funding for small bridges or and some stuff they need. As Janet said, we've conducted round 3 of budget meetings, finished those today. Got a few more things to wrap up and hopefully we'll have that done Thursday. Jen attended the town district meeting. I was out sick all that week for most of the week. We continue to negotiate the police union contract. We had a meeting and they requested several changes, so we've made some more changes. And it's progressing. We're doing okay. I hope to have a proposal. My goal is to have a proposal sometime in March to the council so that we can tie it into the budget, but it's okay. Had the discussion of Great Works Regional Land Trust, reference to Salmon Fall tidal water. I briefed you on that earlier. As Jen said, we met with Stella to discuss our IT needs, solutions, and cost saving factors. We received the final ambulance contract, with the appropriate language and changes we wanted. I've now sent that on to the council for final review, waiting for that to come back, and then I'll just sign that and get that taken care of. The increase is what we thought it was gonna be, so no hidden secrets, no hidden agendas. It's what we budgeted for, what they told us. I attended the zoning board of appeals meeting last night, 226. I've had 3 citizens phone calls regarding marijuana ordinance questions. I've also spent a lot of time researching our ordinances recently and paperwork around the zoning board of appeals hearing. I've read a bunch of documents. And as of this evening, I've had a communication myself and the assistant town manager. Has had a communication from Bernstein Shore from Molly Gilligan, the attorney for the handling our HR account issue. I have not reviewed it yet. We'll be doing that tomorrow when we get to work for us. And then other than that, that's about it. We've been just busy doing stuff. Budget.
And we're getting the first round, at our next meeting.
Yeah, this coming Tuesday, next Tuesday.
Oh, we have a budget workshop. I need to put these on my calendar. I know you gave me a schedule, that's my fault.
Budget workshop next Tuesday.
We had did 6:30 unless you want to change it to 6. And we will meet downstairs in the first floor meeting room because it will be voting day.
Oh, okay. Does anybody have a time preference?
Early is better for
I would
me.
prefer, if we can do 6 o'clock.
Yeah,
6 is fine.
absolutely.
Okay, sweet. Okay, any questions for Tim and Jen?
We tentatively have another
Thanks, guys.
budget meeting scheduled for the Thursday following, so the 5th and the 7th. Would you like 6 PM tentatively scheduled for that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think like all budget workshops at 6,
Perfect.
does that work for people?
Thank you.
Okay, I'm glad we talked about this, because I did not have a mind. Okay, council member comments. Melissa. I'm just like mixing it up.
A couple I probably don't need this either, but. A couple of council meetings ago, in the manager's report, we were made aware that there is a, new service available to our police officers and everybody in the town, regarding, mental health or addiction, counseling. And I feel like where it was given in the manager's report, it kind of only got a quick hit. And I think especially this time of year where seasonal depression definitely affects a lot of people. And with the rampant addiction going on in our country, in our town, in our cities. I would ask the council if we could maybe invite Erin McGann, who is actually the Sweetser liaison that is stationed at the police station and is free to the citizens and anybody who needs it. To maybe come in herself and make a quick blurb in one of our council meetings of why she's here, how she got here, and how she can help our town people. I did touch base with Chief Ruger, who proactively reached out to Erin and said that she would be more than happy to do that, and it was up to us if we could have her here. So I'm just kind of asking the council if that's something we could consider if we have room on the agenda, you know, at some point, at some meeting.
I think it's a great like presentation topic, and whenever works for Erin. I think that's a great idea. Can you guys coordinate with Erin to have her come
Yep.
at some
Take
point?
care of
Absolutely. Thank you. What else you got?
The only other comment, I'd like to make is that, when it comes to, interview processes in our town, in an effort to be fully transparent and really have no question of conflict of interest, we need to be a little more careful with who we choose for the interview process. It's mostly perception, but we did interview a company for the town hall interviews that had prior connections and possibly even present connections. And this is with all due respect to the two people that gave their free time to the evaluations. To some people, it just could have raised a red flag. So I just, like I said, I really appreciate the time and effort that the individuals gave to us, but the optics here might look a little skewed to some people.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. Jeff?
Nothing, thank you.
Jess?
We had a comp plan meeting last night and we were working towards a public information session. So if you're following along and you care about the things in your community, I am totally on board with all of you. Thank you so much. Here are some key dates to take out your schedule. There's a public hearing for our budget on April 9th. There's actually 2 public hearings at this point penciled in. A second is the public informational session for the draft comp plan on Thursday, April 11th. There's a school board budget meeting that's at the district, not here, but that is May 15th. Our public workshop, the next public workshop for the downtown revitalization plan is May 16th. And then our town meeting is May 21st. So we have a very busy spring. We need all of you to tell your neighbors and your friends if they care about things going on to participate and show up.
Thank you. Is it possible to get, I know we have like a calendar on the website. Is it possible to get all of these things on our calendar on the website?
They should be on
If
it.
they're not already, if they are already there, then ignore
They
me.
may not be there. What's that?
Probably not the district stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't do the district stuff, but all our stuff goes on the town
Okay, all
already.
right, never mind.
Yeah, and it shows, I don't know how far ahead we go.
At least a month, but we can put it out further.
Yeah, I think like all of the dates that Jess just rattled off, I think would be good to throw on there, because there's just a lot going on. Anything else for you? That's it, John?
Good, thank you.
I am good too. Thank you, everyone.
Madam Chair, I move we adjourn.
Second, all those in favor, say aye, Jess, aye, Jess, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0.
Don't make fun of me, I have feelings.
No, thank you.
All right, guys, don't run too fast.
Yeah.
Oh, I